Alright, hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm gonna watch Napoleon's first victory, and it's the Siege of Toulon. So I think I'm gonna do a reaction video to this series that Epic History TV has done on the Napoleonic Wars and the beginnings and end of it. So this is gonna be interesting. Original video is down below, and let's begin.
An Epic History TV History March collaboration, supported by our sponsor, Osprey Publishing.
It was in Toulon that my reputation began. I mean, that's true. Look at these maps.
In the summer of 1793.
I mean, we can see the context of the world, or Europe at this time, right? Europe and a little bit Asia, right? So you have Spain, looks pretty much the same, but I think the Spanish has Gibraltar now, but after this war, or these wars, I think Britain is gonna get Spain. Portugal looks the same. France doesn't look the same, right? They don't have Piedmont. And you see the Netherlands looks almost the same. You have Austria, Netherlands, which is Belgium, and I think a little bit of part of Luxembourg. You see here, right? You see Germany fragmented. You see big Poland, right, which is going to be decimated. You see Denmark and Norway conjoined here, right? But Denmark, I don't think has Holstein because there's a line here. But Denmark is going to have a war against Prussia later, right? Like 60 years later. Or 50 years later, right? Sweden looks the same. I think they have a foothold in Pomerania. Prussia, Brandenburg, Prussia looks very tiny, but you know, Finland, Sweden conjoined, I think. Russia looks not bigger. They have Georgia over here. They have Crimea. They have west of the Dnieper. Right, St. Petersburg. I think at this time St. Petersburg is the capital of Russia, not Moscow. Because they built this after they won the war against Sweden. Right, the Great Northern War. They built St. Petersburg here after taking southern part of Finland here, right? Ottoman Empire looks still huge, but is declining. You see all this territory they've taken, Austria-Hungary, or is it? Yeah, it's Austria-Hungary at this time. No, it's not. It's the Austrian Empire at this time. And they have slowly but surely taken lands away from the Ottomans. Russians has done that the same here. Poles as well. Italy is completely decimated here. Like you have two Sicilies here. You have the Papal State, right? Pope rules here. You have Venice here. Right, you have the Tyrols here. You have Piedmont, Sardinia, right? These two. And a little background about Napoleon. Napoleon was born, I think, 1 year after or before France technically bought Corsica, right? Because Corsica is Italian, but then France bought or invaded or got the permission to invade Corsica to take it to themselves, right? So it's France, but not France, and the people in Corsica at this time are considering themselves Italian more than French. So, you know, a lot of these countries are not going to be existing in the next 100 years, right? Cyprus there. Okay. Yeah, let's go.
The French Revolution was entering its fourth year. And
Brutal.
France was on the verge of anarchy.
Yeah.
In Paris, political extremists had seized control of the revolution.
Robespierre, Danton, Saint-Just, yep.
They guillotined the king.
Yep.
And imposed a reign of terror that dealt summary justice to all suspected enemies of the revolution.
I mean, you can compare that with during the Russian Revolution. Not the exact same things happened, but there was a lot of revolutions, counter-revolutions, a lot of executions, mass hangings, mass executions, right? People fled to the US. Yeah.
Hoping to unify the new republic, France's leaders had declared war on the Habsburg Empire.
Which is...
But the conflict quickly widened, and soon France was facing the combined might of Europe's leading powers, determined to stamp out her dangerous political experiment.
The old Spanish flag, or that Spanish flag, I think is pretty cool. Prussian flag, awesome. Britain's flag, awesome. I mean, Austria's flag, Sardinia's flag looks almost identical to Denmark's, but Denmark's is a cross, not a plus. Right. Okay.
Meanwhile, whole regions of France had come out in open revolt, horrified by the new extremism of the revolution. In August, the Republic suffered a further, potentially fatal blow, when the city of Toulon joined the revolt. Toulon was France's largest and most important naval base in the south, home to a third of the entire French Navy.
A third?
But now, rebels welcomed their old enemy, the British Royal Navy, into the port, led by Admiral Lord Hood, aboard HMS Victory.
And I believe Lord Hood, I could be mistaken, but the HMS Hood that is, spoiler alert, sunk in World War II, I think is named after him. Could be wrong. Probably is that. That's how that usually goes, but you know.
It was an extraordinary coup. Without a shot being fired, the Allies had crippled French naval power in the Mediterranean and gained a vital toehold on the French coast.
That is true.
All French forces in the area were immediately diverted to face this new threat and lay siege to the rebel port. 19,000 troops in all. But since most French officers had been aristocrats who were now fleeing the revolution in large numbers, they were seriously short of professional leadership.
That's a problem.
Their commander, General Jean-François Carteau, was a loyal Republican, but a court painter by trade with no military training.
Problem. No experienced officers.
To make matters worse, one of his few professional officers, his artillery commander, Colonel Martin, had been badly wounded on the approach to Toulon. Antoine Salicetti, a Corsican deputy of the National Convention in Paris, recommended as his replacement a fellow countryman,
another Corsican,
a 24-year-old artillery officer who was passing Toulon en route to the front.
How convenient.
Named Napoleone Buonaparte, or Bonaparte.
Because that's the Italian.
Bonaparte was a...
That is the Italian pronunciation of his name and last name, right? Is Napoleone Bonaparte, not Napoleon Bonaparte. That's a little French.
Professional soldier,
and he had
but he'd seen almost no active service. Nevertheless, Salicetti was impressed by his manner, and most of all, his politics.
That's
Bonaparte had just written a political pamphlet, a short story about a young artillery officer who berates his fellow diners for their disloyalty to the Republic.
But I mean, if you want experienced officers, it's a little bit problem if you don't, because I thought Republic was meant to be more based on merit. That's why all these people rose pretty fast in ranks, because they had a lot of merit, right? But if you're basing your appointment on political views, that you're supporting the Republic, that's not merit, right? That's the same thing that the royals did, right? Not based on merit, based on politics, or based on you like the king or like that, right? But they were lucky that Napoleon was this genius, right?
General Carteau thought it wise to accept Deputy Salicetti's recommendation.
Let's see how this goes. One can remain 24 or if necessary 36 hours without eating, but one cannot remain 30 minutes without gunpowder. I mean, you can all the food in the world, but if you don't have gunpowder... The great port of
Toulon was well defended by city walls.
You can see that.
And a dozen outlying forts and redoubts. They were held by 2,000 British soldiers and sailors, 6,000 Spanish troops, 6,000 Neapolitans, and 800 Sardinians.
It's a pretty good force.
Artillery would be the key to overcoming these formidable defences.
Makes sense.
But when Bonaparte was put in command of the artillery on the 16th of September, he found himself with few cannon, not enough trained gun crews, and a shortage of gunpowder and shot.
How is he gonna overcome this then?
With relentless energy and determination, Bonaparte transformed the situation, requisitioning unused guns, training infantrymen to work them.
That's pretty good, but why were they unused? Were they too old? But then if he used them, see, that's what happens when you don't have merit, you know? You don't think critically.
Setting up a new forge and workshop, and arranging transport from Marseille of 100,000 sandbags for constructing new batteries.
Okay.
Through hard work, he was ultimately able to build his force up to 64 officers and 1,500 men, manning 100 cannon, howitzers and mortars.
I can see a parallel here, right? Between this and 20 years before, or not 20, like 18, no, like 15 years before, right? The American Revolution. They surrounded New York, right? But Washington didn't have, or York, they didn't have, no, it's New York. Yorktown, right? They surrounded it, the Constitutional Army, right? But they didn't have guns, but George Washington got the guns and surrounded the city and laid siege. This is like sort of the same, right? It's not a siege yet, right? Because you have to attack and then siege it, but it's a parallel.
Within days, Bonaparte had established 2 new forward batteries with good revolutionary names. La Montagne and Sans Culottes.
I guess it's good for morale.
Which brought Toulon's inner harbour within range.
Makes sense.
And forced Admiral Hood to move all his ships closer to the port.
That makes sense.
Bonaparte also came up with a plan, one that would allow the French to bypass most of Toulon's defences and secure the rapid victory the Republic so desperately needed. Bonaparte argued that if Fort L'Aiguillette could be captured, which looked out across the harbour, he could fill it with heavy guns and shell the British and Spanish fleet at anchor. Admiral Hood would be forced to abandon the port and take with him the Allied soldiers that Toulon relied on for its defence.
Makes sense.
General Carteau saw the merits of Bonaparte's plan, and on the 22nd of September, French forces attacked Montcaire. But to Bonaparte's exasperation, while he'd argued for an attack by 3,000 men, the indecisive Carteau committed only 400.
Nice. Great. Get rid of him then.
Not only was the attack easily repulsed, but it alerted the Allies to the danger.
Makes sense. And they're gonna reinforce.
In 48 hours, they'd reinforced Montcaire with thousands more troops and built a new fort named Fort Mulgrave, bristling with 20 cannon. The position was now so strong, the French nicknamed it Little Gibraltar.
Exactly. There's only one possible plan, Bonaparte's.
Finally, in mid-November, an experienced professional soldier arrived to take command of French forces, General Dugommier. He saw at once that Bonaparte's plan was the only way to take Toulon, and gave it his full backing.
That's good.
Bonaparte, promoted to major, got to work, overseeing construction of several more batteries in preparation for the decisive assault. One forward battery was so exposed to enemy fire that men refused to be sent there. So Bonaparte renamed it La Batterie des Hommes Sans Peur, the battery of men without fear. And suddenly, there was no shortage of volunteers.
Good.
It was an early display of Napoleon's genius for inspiring his soldiers. One that would serve him well in the
that looks like a photo. I think it's a painting, right? That's a painting. But it looks like a photo, right? Look at that. Amazing.
As ahead. On the 30th of November, the Allied Land Forces commander, British General Charles O'Hara, tried to seize back the initiative, leading an assault on the new French batteries facing Fort Malbousquet.
Maybe go on their flanks, not right in, but okay.
At first the attack was successful. The batteries were overrun, the French guns spiked. But a counterattack with much greater numbers, and led in person by General Dugommier and Major Bonaparte, drove back the Allies.
Would have probably made sense to outflank, but then they can go into the city, so...
General O'Hara himself was shot through the hand and captured. 12 years before, he'd surrendered to George Washington at Yorktown.
Yeah, Yorktown.
During the American War of Independence.
There you go. That's the link.
Now he got to surrender to Napoleon
That's amazing.
Bonaparte.
Surrender to Washington and Bonaparte. Among those who most distinguished themselves and give the most help in rallying the men and leading them forward were Citizen Bonaparte, Commandant of the Artillery. There we go.
In the early hours of the 18th of December, in howling wind and driving rain,
gonna attack now?
The French launched a major assault on Fort Mulgrave. The wet conditions made muskets useless, except as clubs or with bayonets. Bonaparte led the second wave in person. Amid fierce hand-to-hand fighting, his horse was killed under him, and he was bayoneted in the thigh by a British sergeant, a wound that came within inches of ending his life and radically changing the course of history.
That's gonna...
Finally, the Allied garrison was overwhelmed, and Mulgrave fell to the French. Fort L'Aiguillette and Tour de la Balaquière were soon also in French hands.
That was pretty good. And now he can turn his guns.
By the following afternoon, the French had 10 heavy guns in L'Aiguillette, placing the Allied ships within range.
Now they're in danger.
Admiral Hood could not expose his valuable ships of the line to such a threat.
A retreat plan?
He had no option but to order an immediate evacuation of the fleet and garrison.
I mean, this has to be done very professionally, otherwise it's gonna be a disaster. Right? It's just gonna be a slaughter, right? Okay.
From Toulon. Small Spanish and British teams raced to destroy all the French ships and naval stores that they couldn't take with them.
Destroying
but amid the chaos of their departure, 18 ships of the line were allowed to fall back into French hands.
18.
A badly missed opportunity.
Yeah, but I mean, they're in a hurry, but okay.
Many French citizens of Toulon were desperate to escape aboard the Allied ships.
Makes sense.
Knowing that the Republicans would inflict terrible reprisals on the city.
Yeah. I mean, if the roles were reversed, which they were before the French revolutions, the same thing would have happened, right? It's just human nature, right? You betrayed me somehow and you fought against me, so now I have to, you know. But again, if you do this, you're just repeating the cycle of you do this to me and I do this to you, and we keep doing this until no one is here left on Earth, right? So you have to break the cycle, but okay, let's see what happens.
British and Spanish ships took as many as they could, about 14,000
Is that guy
in all,
beating them down?
but scores were drowned amid chaotic
the boats
and desperate scenes.
Flipping over.
Others were left to face the wrath of the revolution.
Yeah. Oh.
Republican troops entered the city the next morning, and executions and firing squads began almost immediately.
Yeah, so...
For the next 2 weeks, about 200 were executed every day.
Every day?
Allied propaganda later blamed Bonaparte for the atrocities.
Wait, 200 every day for 2 weeks? Is that 2,800 people? How many people were in Toulon at that time? Yikes. That's terrible.
But there's no evidence he was directly involved.
Okay. I mean, British propaganda is very strong. My predictions were exactly fulfilled. Such is the history of this event, which so greatly astonished Europe and has never been well understood. Okay.
France's young republic was now fighting back on all fronts.
That saved her.
And with the fall of Toulon,
Boats,
the Allies had lost a golden opportunity, a chance to stir up further revolt, deal a lasting blow to French naval power, perhaps even overturn the revolution.
Yeah.
But instead, the French Republic had weathered one of its greatest storms, in no small part thanks to the remarkable judgment, energy and courage of one 24-year-old artillery officer.
Yeah.
Now promoted Brigadier General.
There you go.
In recognition of his extraordinary service at Toulon.
Yeah, for merit. Good. Not for political connections.
Napoleon
Maybe a little
Bonaparte
bit there, right?
had taken his first step on the path to greatness.
Yeah. Look at that painting.
And for Europe, 21 years of almost constant war awaited.
Yep. All right. That was awesome, right? I mean, they dove deep in the strategy, the tactical things, I mean, the reprisals, right? Napoleon's little hint of genius there, or Clarence in mind, not just thinking of the moment, but thinking of the whole picture, right? That's good. Alright, we'll see you in the next episode, and we'll watch this Napoleonic series. Bye.